This is The Close-Up. Conversations about creativity. From our studios in Los Angeles, here is Jim Chabin.
Welcome to The Close-Up. Bill Simon leads the media and entertainment practice at Korn Ferry International in Los Angeles. In that role, he finds CEOs and other senior executives for Fortune 500 media companies and emerging digital content platforms. He's a good friend. Bill, thank you for being here today.
It's a pleasure. Great to be with you, Jim.
So a studio senior media company calls you and says, I'm not happy with where we are. We've just lost a guy. I want to bring in a man or a woman to turn this company around. Tell me what I need in today's environment. What do you say?
What's wrong? What's missing? What do you think you need? Where do you think this man or woman is sitting today? What kinds of skills are you looking for? What kind of change do you want to make? Do you really want to make change, or do you just think you want to make change? How serious are you about it? Do you have the stomach to make the change? Do you have the willpower and the strong stomach to go through the process of interviewing people, of thinking about change, and then integrating this new person, this man or woman, into the company? How, you can't just start on day one and change the company and turn it 180 degrees. Somebody has to fit into the organization. So what kind of fit are you looking for? What kind of style of person is going to be successful here? What kinds of specific experience with regard to strategy, operations, sales, marketing, distribution? How much digital experience? How much international experience? How much creative versus just strictly the business sides? And so those conversations actually take a lot longer. And sometimes it takes a few meetings to get people to digest the thoughts, digest the issues, figure out what they really want. And then oftentimes, what does the board want? If it's a CEO or very senior position, sometimes the board gets involved if it's a public company. And so getting the input from the board members. And interestingly enough, we find that very often, even the board members don't even agree. Or if it's a senior management team, not everybody around the senior management table agrees about what they need. So it's really about trying to build some consensus, about trying to get a clear picture of what the company is really looking for, what the issues are, and then talk about, again, where this person is going to come from. And what are the issues that are going to enable him or her to be successful, and then what are the pitfalls that people have had who aren't successful in a company?
What percentage of the people that are coming into a senior position are there to change things, to be a change agent? And that's a variable, but what percentage of the time is someone saying, I need something fixed, or I need something emphasized?
Yeah, I think it's most of the time, frankly. I think, when the CEO of a company hires us or the board of a company hires us, it's because they need to make a change. They want to make a change. Something is not going well. Something is just off kilter a bit. And so typically there's some change. Now, the real question is, and this is where the conversations and the multiple conversations often take place, which is, do they really mean it when they say they want change? And when they say they want to change it 180 degrees, do they really mean they want to change it 5 degrees? And so I think that's really trying to get an understanding of what's the appetite for change, what's the willingness for change, what's the skill to make change available, to make it possible. So it's a lot of the subtleties and the nuances that are really the key to getting a successful executive to come in and be successful.
Where are the jobs now? You're traditionally have had a film, television, cable background. You're working in a whole host of new areas. Where are the new opportunities if you're a professional in our industry?
From a business side, and again, we don't do the we don't do talent, we like to say. So we're not doing actors or writers or directors or line producers. On the executive side, the jobs are with both the traditional studio and network kinds of companies, whether it be cable or broadcast or movie studios. They still hire us and they represent a big portion of our business, but the fastest growing part of our business is the digital media companies. And so that's the part that's exciting. It includes games, it includes content for mobile devices, it includes broadband distribution, the MCNs. Those are the growing pieces of our business. We still work for the record labels, although that's a very, very, very small part of our business today. We still work for the cable networks. That's a smaller part of our business today than it was 5 years ago. So there is a lot of change, and our business, frankly, is just a reflection of what's going on in the marketplace. Our business is a lot like if you read the Wall Street Journal every day and you look at the middle column, or you read the New York Times, or you read Deadline, or you read, Hollywood Reporter or Variety or any of the other trade publications. It's where there's change, there's typically change in leadership. There's a need for different skills, different styles, different points of view. And that's really what we're about, is enabling that change to take place and to enable it to be successful.
Would you say that there are more executive positions or management positions available to a professional in the media and entertainment business than there were 15 years ago, if you include these new opportunities? More jobs, fewer jobs?
You know, it's a great question, and it's both. The answer is both. There are more jobs and fewer jobs, and I know that doesn't make any sense, and I apologize. The challenge is one is, how do you define it? How do you define the marketplace of jobs? So there are lots and lots of new companies. That being said, there's also been tremendous consolidation among the more traditional companies. The roll-up of the cable networks, for instance, into these big mega companies. And there are fewer jobs at the top of the pyramid. So if you look at any company, any organization, they typically have some sort of a pyramid structure. And it's the senior leadership team at the top of the pyramid that we work in. And that's where we recruit. So there are fewer jobs, if you will, at the top of the pyramid. That being said, there still are very, very high quality, very successful, very fast growing companies in the digital space that do need us. And so we're thankful for that. And so we've been reinventing and evolving our business to be able to service the game publishers, the MCNs, as I mentioned before, the digital content providers and distributors and the platform companies.
You have placed dozens, if not hundreds, of people over the years. What does a winning candidate in a search, what characteristics do they have in common, or do you look for in them so that they can go all the way and actually be successful in getting placed?
It's a very thoughtful question, actually, and I've never quite thought about it that way. At the beginning of a search, we have a sense about what we're looking for. And oftentimes we're right because we've done it a lot, and we've also spent a lot of time with the company that's hiring us, trying to get a very deep and thorough understanding of what they're looking for. So when we go out to the marketplace, we oftentimes have a pretty clear sense, not who the finalist is, but the kind of finalist we're looking for, and the kind of person that's going to be successful working for that board or working for that CEO or whomever. What they have in common is all the candidates that we end up presenting to a company, to the client, all have the skill. They all have the expertise. There's not anybody who's going to get past the filter or the interview process that doesn't have the experience. We're not going to put a chief financial officer into a company who hasn't been a controller or a treasurer or some other highly responsible kind of financial position before. So they have the qualifications. The questions really are around what is their own style of leadership and management and communication, privately and publicly. What is their track record in terms of what kinds of companies do they work well in? What kinds of environments do they not work well in? It's really going to be around style and fit and temperament, and then vision. Do they share a vision? Do they have a similar vision? Do they have a divergent vision from what the client company is looking for? So it's really trying to ascertain, evaluate, and judge sort of the issues around fit and style and personality. The experience piece, we do that. I mean, that goes without saying. The real challenge and the real value add that we provide is a very thorough process, one that reaches out to people who are working and not working. It's one that goes across different industry sectors and subsectors, and it's one that really focuses on fit and style and communication.
In your role, you probably provide 2 or 3 people at the very end. Maybe it's down to 2 interviews. They're looking at 2 candidates, both of them fantastic. More often than not, what do you observe is that additional moment where they say, I'm going to take this person. I've just made the decision.
Yeah, usually it's about something invisible. It's something that is really more in the air. It's something that it's chemistry. It's really it's about comfort. It's about style. It's really about the fit pieces. It's just like going out and dating.
I remember you once said, think in terms of sitting on this person in the next seat on an airplane to Hong Kong.
Right, I did say
Who
that
would
to
you want to sit
That's
next
exactly
to
right.
for 10 hours? Because you're going to spend a lot of time with these people.
That's exactly right. And that hasn't changed. I still use that analogy, so thanks for reminding me of it.
What do the smartest executives right now. Someone, Phil McKinney of Cable Labs, said recently at one of our events, a few years ago, cybersecurity would have been in the top 10 kind of direct reports of a CEO. That's in the top 3 or 4 now.
Absolutely.
So what are the smart executives thinking about right now as far as making sure that they are protected and that they are well positioned for the future?
Well, certainly cybersecurity is a great example. You're right. It's gone from being one of the top 10 or 12 to being one of the top 2 or 3. So there's no question about that. And that's a whole area of specialized experience and training and expertise. And it's one that we actually have a whole practice now developed and focused on cybersecurity. And so we have professionals that come out of that world, and we're pretty excited about that line of business. The other area that continues to be a critical growth area for companies, and it's one that we spend a lot of time doing and a lot of work in the space, multi-platform ad sales, chief revenue officers. I think the whole notion around and the whole focus on creating new revenue streams and multiple revenue streams is such a must in today's economy. Companies have a certain amount of rope to be able to go out there and hang themselves before they get changed out. So I think it's creating revenue. Some of it's subscription, some of it's on demand, some of it's and other forms. It's advertising, and so it's really about multi-platform ad sales. And the other one that's actually evolved and changed significantly and is in very, very high demand right now is the chief marketing officer position. The CMO job today is 180 degrees or maybe 179 degrees different than it was just 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, it was 80% creative and 20% strategy and business and so on. And today, that job is probably 80 to 85 to 90% about metrics. It's these quant jock analytics kind of focused people that can look at real-time data and figure out how to use that to maximize performance, to maximize size of audience, to maximize target demographics, to maximize all the different features, whether it's acquisition of eyeballs, whether it's monetization, whether it's reducing churn, it's all the different factors. So the CMO is really not only key to the creative proposition and the creative statement that's out there and the brand, the way one brands oneself, the company, but it's also serving the CEO in terms of helping to execute on the strategy and supporting the sales organization. So that job, again, it's changed a lot in the last several years. We're very excited about that, but it's also created a lot of challenges for companies and for executives. And those executives that have been chief marketing officers or heads of marketing for a long time and come at it from a creative point of view are struggling significantly to stay in the game. And it's really, really hard because everything is real time now. Everything is measurable.
So we're an industry that prides itself on being creative, and it's always been an ethereal descriptor of an executive. They need to be able to work with creative people. I want creative thinking out of the box. Yep. How do you describe a good creative person?
A good creative person is somebody who has the ability to take disparate ideas, execute against them, put them into some kind of a well thought out and very special and very unique kind of product or manner or piece of video or piece of film or storytelling. I think good creatives have the ability to transcend take a story and enable it to grow bigger into multiple directions. And great marketing people can do that, and great salespeople, frankly, can do that. It's about storytelling, it's about engagement, it's about letting people realize that they can go further or farther with an idea or a business enterprise or with a new partnership or what have you. So I think those are some of the key things that whether it's in the pure creative or that you normally think of or in a business side from a creative point of view.
Many of the people that have been a part of this industry for many years came into the industry maybe in the 1950s or 60s and spent their entire life in one company. Mm-hmm. Those days are over, mm-hmm. for the most part. Yep. When you talk to a young person and they say, I'd like to work at this company for the rest of my life, and you come back to them and say, you need to be thinking in terms of how many different skill sets are you going to need, or how many careers are you going to have? How do you look at that from your perch? I
think it's clearly changed over the last 20 years. I mean, I've been in the headhunting business long enough to remember when cable and home video was called new media. Okay, So the business has changed a lot over the years. But the young people today growing up are going to have somewhere between 5 and 7 different careers, or 5 or 7 certainly different employers. I think the traditional notion that you have to stay at a company for 10 years or 7 years before changing jobs, and if you change after 2 years, it's too soon, and all those false statements that go back to our parents' generation. Those days are over. There's not certainly in the media and entertainment space, and frankly, it's a lot like this in other industry sectors as well, but not all. The notion of getting fired is not a black mark that goes with you for the rest of your life, and that you were fired or you left a company or you were unemployed for a period of time, whether it's 6 months or a year or 2. I think somebody who's been, who churns in his or her job every 12 months for 20 years, there's a problem. If you're in your 20s and you're on your first and then your second and then your third job and you stay 12 months or 18 months and then you change, there's nothing wrong with that. There's no negative. In fact, frankly, it's a positive because it's enriching these young people as they're developing their careers. The other thing that's really, really important is careers today are not a straight line. It's not a straight rocket ship ride to the moon. You advance, you might have to take 2 steps back, you take 3 steps forward, you take another half step back, you go sideways for a little while. The business, the marketplace, the economy, the technology, all of it's changing so rapidly. And so all of us have to learn to adapt and to change. And I think the 20-somethings today and even the 30-somethings today are growing up with a much broader sense and perception about what their careers are going to look like. They know they're not going to be at the same place for 20 or 30 or 40 years. They know that they're likely to change jobs. They know that they're going to be fired a couple of times. The whole notion of independent workforce and flexible workforce, we talk about the pluses and minuses to it, but taking consultancies. 5 years from now, we're going to look back on this period of 2015 or 2014, whatever, and we're going to look back and we're going to realize that this was a key moment, a key period of change in the media and entertainment space specifically. The economics are changing, the platforms are changing, the consumer habits are changing, the way we eat and drink our content, the way we access our content, the way it's monetized, the way companies fund it and produce it, all of it's changing. So I think it's going to be really exciting a few years from now to look back and say, gee, we were there, we were part of it.
I understand you're in the middle of a tornado.
But it is exactly like a tornado. And it's a bit like being in the tornado and you're Dorothy and you don't know if you're going to land in Kansas, your home state, or in Budapest. Okay, that's how big the tornado is, and that's how wide it's going, and that's how disruptive it is.
There was an article in Ad Age that the typical Fortune 500 CMO, those are 2-year contracts.
Yep.
These are not lifetime contracts,
Correct.
even for the best of the best.
That's right.
Are contracts getting shorter? Are there fewer contracts? What are the terms of agreement if you're working for someone these days?
There are fewer contracts. Okay, that's the short answer to the question. There are far fewer contracts today. The contracts today are a lot for the creative people. They're truly creative people developing shows and producing shows. Those folks have contracts. People overseeing a creative process oftentimes have contracts. The executives some have contracts, but there's a push at all the studio companies and all the traditional network companies, cable and broadcast, to minimize, to reduce the number of contracts. What is being put in place oftentimes are these rolling severance agreements. So essentially it's a pre-negotiated rolling severance of a year or 6 months or 18 months or whatever it's going to be. And that's actually the most valuable part of the contract, frankly. Because at the end of the day, obviously the company's going to pay you every 2 weeks the way they're supposed to.
Right.
Or presumably.
Right.
Okay, but at the end of the day, the real question is around how am I going to get treated on the day you decide you don't want me here anymore? Okay? So if you have a rolling 12-month severance agreement, you at least have that cushion. And I think we see a lot more of that today than we have ever before.
What's a great resume look like?
Just the facts, ma'am. Okay?
How many pages?
I'm not a savant of resumes. I have colleagues in my firm and colleagues around the industry that have very strong feelings about resumes. I think as long as it states the facts, it's easy to read, it's short, it's punchy, it's got bullet points, it tells the truth. Never, never, never tell us that you have a degree from some place that you don't have, because we do verify all the educational statements on a resume. We actually contact the universities on every single person we present to a client.
So we live in a world of social media, and self-help books and articles are saying you should be on LinkedIn, you should be on Facebook, you should tweet, you should be on Twitter. It's important for people who might be looking for a candidate, and in case Bill Simon does not call you, and you've got to be out there, what's the best place to be putting your efforts in order to be noticed for contact for a job opportunity?
I think the best way to do it is to be doing great work and to really be making an impact in whatever you're doing at the company you're at today, at the firm you're at today, the agency you're at today, the production company, or what have you. You will get known and you will get noticed. I think participating in things like this, just being part of an organization or part of attending conferences, speaking on panels and so on. These are all good ways to raise one's profile. LinkedIn is fantastic. Facebook is really good. I think there's a whole host of these that can be utilized sensibly. I think the one thing to remember, and I tell this to my kids too, which is everything you put up on the web, whether it's an email, it's a post, it's a link, it's a picture.
Or a bachelorette party.
Or
right?
a bachelorette party.
Right.
Everything lives forever. It all lives forever. And so somebody who's going to be doing a deep background check on you 20 years from now will be able to find that email or that text or that photo. And I think as long as you know that all of this lives on and you treat it appropriately, it's okay. I think there are lots of different places to make yourself known, but I think good work begets good work, and that's my own personal belief. And I think then participating in industry organizations and community events and not-for-profits and things you're passionate about, that you're sincere about, then that's all value add, because you're then going to get noticed by more people and different kinds of people. Because the next job you're going to have may not be just the most typical go to the next company down the street. It may be something off to the side. It may be something very, very different. And you look at the new CFO I think at Google came from JP Morgan. Okay? Who would have expected that?
And the safest way for those people to let others know I'm looking is how?
I think, well, the other dirty little secret about looking for a job, as much as we think we do great work and we have a lot of jobs that we do every year, and and as a firm we do tens of thousands a year, and we do dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens in the media and entertainment space. Statistically, your next job is going to come from a friend of a friend. And even though there's a lot of good headhunting firms, executive search firms out there, statistically, it'll come from a friend of a friend. You're going to be talking to somebody saying, you know, I'm just thinking about this and not sure. And somebody says, well, gee, I got a friend who runs this company over here and blah, blah, blah. And that's really how it's going to most likely going to happen. But I do think that it's very good to be on LinkedIn. It's very good to be on these other social media sites and continue
but
that.
Inherently let people know.
I think it's about being visible. I call it being vertical, which is being out, talking to people, being in the mix, being part of the conversation. And when people don't have a job and they're between pictures, as we refer to it at our place, take on a consulting project. What's the reason for that? Well, you might get paid, and that's good, so the extra money is fine. But the real benefit of taking on some of these consulting projects is to be out in the marketplace, being visible, not talking about yourself. Meaning you're talking to people about whatever this consulting project is, about whatever this thing is you're working on. It gives you permission to be talking to people, but not in a way saying, I'm looking for a job.
Right.
So it increases your awareness.
Non-threatening way
Absolutely
to engage
right.
with a large number of people.
That's right. That's exactly right.
That's a great idea. You're one of the few people I know who actually has experience in Washington and Hollywood. You worked in the Carter White House. When you're around that kind of structure, and then you're at a studio meeting or meeting with a senior executive, compare the two.
They're exactly the same.
They are.
Oh yeah, because it's all talent. It's all about the talent. I used to joke around that politics in Washington D.C. is exactly like Hollywood. It's just sort of different ends of the globe, but they're sort of at opposite ends. But it's, the people in Hollywood seem to get excited about the politicians who come in from Washington, and the folks in Washington certainly get excited about the folks that come in their direction from Hollywood. So it's the compensation is different, but the drivers of ego and prestige and status and visibility are all very, very similar. And there's lots of fun stories that one could tell over cocktails another time to give examples of that.
Well, I would hope that maybe in the future we will hire Korn Ferry to find us a president of the United States. Until then, thank you so much for being here, and good luck.
Thank you, Jim. What a pleasure to be with you.
The Close-Up is produced by the Advanced Imaging Society in Hollywood and powered by Barco.